Serbia is one of the countries that had their final yesterday. They had their 2 semis throughout the week, actually, a little different than a lot of others. And then yesterday they had the full show. So from each semi, we had a bunch of songs qualifying 8 to be specific, and we had a pretty busy lineup in the finals with the 16 songs. Let's go for them really, really quick. And of course, I always want to help you to remember who performed. So here's a very quick recap.
Bili srećni i ona i ja. Svako živi život najbolje što zna. Nekome je majka, neko maćeha.
Ja bit ću dobro, možda si prvi na zadnji jednog dana. Biće mi smiješno sve što radim, ali svaki put kad vreme menja se, duboko meni se vraća se. Hej, neka, 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 ja te volim iz daleka. Tebi pišem, tebi pevam, ja bez sebe nemam strah. Hej, neka, 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 šta te to na meni, mami, maš tu goli ZAMI. Tako ne stvaram psihani, igraj ZUMI, ZIMI, ZAMI. Šta te to na meni, mami, maš tu goli ZAMI. Release your stress and make a mess.
Hladna noć na mene pada, udala se moja draga, ja u krčmi tražim vraga sam. Rujnoga ću vina piti, ja ću nju zaboraviti.
Platit ćemo sve na kraju dana. Slomit će me greh, ali nema nazad. Slomit će me greh u param parča. Ponoć prošla je i šta ćeš sada?
I just wanna sleep forever. I like it better when I dream. Želim se the spava, dok sve izgori. I just wanna close my eyes and just get it over with. Želim se neki novi sati, neka drugi prati. Još jedan je stalo je samo taj, neki kraj. Kažu da mu leči sve, novi plan, drugi san. Ali ikad prestaće, taj, neki kraj. Kažu da mu leči sve.
Zatvaraj prozore,
Noć je dana, da sama si moram da znam.
posle mene ne vreme. Uvek bićeš voljena, nekom prava dama. Ostala si dosledna i na kraju sama. Piti stari šta mi je, zašto suza lije.
Okay, so there you have the 16 songs that were in the running. And of course, once they've all performed, we had first a jury vote and then the televote. And interestingly enough, the winner of PZE didn't win the televote, didn't win the jury vote, came second in both groups, but that was enough because there was some disagreement between those two groups. We all know by now that it was Luke Black with Samo, spava winning, therefore going to Liverpool. Now, Roy, he was, I think, fair to say, the fan favorite, the one that people were rooting for. Of course, there's always a wide range of opinion, but I think the consensus was this was the fan favorite. Your thoughts when that one won? Were you surprised, relieved, or just more like, yeah, duh?
No, honestly, like I saw that lobster on my timeline about 17 gazillion times or something like that. Like that picture of him with the lobster and like his head. So it was definitely one of the fan favorites. I think they made a good choice here. It's a different song. It's very interesting, very daring. But I do think it is a cool song that could really stand out in the lineup. And, you know, there were other options as well. Like in general, I think Serbia had quite a strong national selection. Like there were about 7 or 8 songs that I could have just easily seen going to Eurovision and do well there. So Serbia, hats off. Like that was a strong selection. And it's a cool song that won in the end. It wasn't necessarily my top favorite, but it was like my 3rd favorite or something.
Yeah. I think it was also, I'm very happy with the choice as well. I think what Serbia will do with this is, again, kind of like last year, not comparing the songs in style-wise, but it's a little bit more of a risk. Because Constructa, I think, was the risk. It could have flopped if people didn't click with it. It was performed by a less charismatic singer, whatever it may be, right? So there was a risk involved, and I think it's something similar here. You can make a case that Luke Black needs to a little polish his staging and his voice and the whole package, and I think that is a fair thing to say. That being said, on the Eurovision stage, I think they have plenty of time to fix that. I think that they absolutely made the right choice. And in hindsight, some of my favorites would have not been good choices for Eurovision. I don't think, I'm not saying this song is not a good Eurovision song, because whatever is popular, you know, they send. But in terms of what a song can do, ending up higher up on the scoreboard, or at least making it to the final. So I think Luke has really good chances of going far, especially, I mean, I was going to say especially with only televoters, although he did get also 2nd place with the juries, which was a big surprise. I'm not sure, Roy, did you look up the semi-final results at all?
I saw a few things coming through. He was like 6th in the semi-final or something.
Yes,
right?
He got 2 points from the juries and 8 points, so 3rd from the televoter. So he was only in 6th place out of 8 that qualified. So something happened in between the semis through the finals that the juries in particular, but even the televoters to a certain extent were like, okay, this is a grower, right?
Yeah, the thing is, if I remember correctly, they changed jurors for the final.
Yes,
so like the ones that were judging in the semifinals were different than what they had in the grand final. And, you know, last year as well, Constructa, I don't think won the semifinal she was in, but then ended up winning in the end. And, you know, both of those songs are kind of songs you need to have a bit of time with, perhaps, or maybe just to listen to it for the first time, be like, okay, that was nice. And then the second time it hits a bit more and you like it a little bit more. So maybe that's what was happening. And yeah, it happened last year, but not as extreme as this year. So it was a bit odd to see that, to be honest.
And it's very important to point out those are different juries that were there, but still, it is quite a dramatic difference. It just shows that I think maybe Luke's song is a little more polarizing, but and I know it's like a broken record, it's not always a bad thing, because again, you cannot vote against the song. The other thing that some people were surprised, I'm not sure if you're on the same page, Roy, was that Luke Black, now in hindsight it makes sense, but last night, that he did not win the televote either. That, how do you pronounce it, Prink or Prince?
I would assume Prince. I don't know.
Yeah, so he won the televote, even though it was by less than 300 votes. So it was a tiny margin, but nevertheless, he didn't win. Was that a surprise to you, or can you see why Prince won?
I can definitely see why it won, because it sounds like a bit more of the songs that we used to see from like Bosnia in a few years back, and from Serbia as well. Like it had the Balkan sound. It was very fun. He was very charismatic as well. I think it was a very slick performance as well. And I think it's just a bit more accessible than Luke Black's song was, perhaps. So maybe if you didn't see the semifinals, you might have a bit more immediate impact with Prince's song. But I do think this was the better choice for Serbia than Prince's song. But yeah, it was a bit surprising, but I can also see why.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And by the way, everyone in the chat, if you have a question specific to Serbia, songs that you want to ask or say, statements at ESC United in the chat. Roy, I know you said that you like Luke's song very much. What's like in your top 3? If it
Yes.
was Roy's Serbia national final, who would have been the
Oh.
winner?
All right, so Look Black will be my 3rd place. I think my 2nd place was Zipsy with Gre. I know that is not something that the masses would love, and it would probably not do that well at the Eurovision. I mean, it did quite well in the results. Like, I got 3rd in the televote. But yeah, that was my 2nd place. And my favorite was actually the jury winner, Nada, with a very difficult title. Yeah, I quite enjoyed it. It was very cute, very, very nicely sung, nicely staged. It was just nice.
That is so sweet because, again, doesn't scream Roy favorite. You know, when I listen to it, I'm like, that doesn't sound like something Roy would embrace. But clearly, you sometimes do surprise me after all. I was the Gypsy thing. I know that became like an online favorite almost. I saw a lot of people talking about that one. The song itself to me was just okay, but there was something about Gypsy.
Yeah, exactly.
That was you just like, this is an artist. This is a unique personality, and I couldn't keep my eyes off of him. And that's what you need. And I'm hoping he's going to be back at some point in the future and try again with another song, because I think star quality is there. It's just coming up with a song even that maybe even more accessible. We're going through some other ones. Emily's saying, I'm getting, if Croatia 2019 The Dream and a little bit of Norway 21 went to side of the dark arts, you'd get this. Which one? Is it like the Prince we're talking about? No, we're talking about the winning song, Luke Black, I think. I'm trying to remember. Oh, The Dream. Oh God, the angel. I don't want to talk about that. That is still, I still have a little PTSD of that from that one. Luke Black, Stefan Schei, Zipsy would have been more than content with those 3. We talked about Luke. We briefly talked about Zipsy. How do you feel about Stefan Schei, the first song of the night? My personal opinion was, it's a really good song, actually. I really couldn't get past his low energy. And it's like, seems kind of unfair just to point, it's even a thing, right? Like for some people, it's appealing. But for me, it's like, I get distracted if I don't feel engaged. Like, you don't have to be Zipsy, like, wee, but you have to be at least a little bit more engaging. And the swag was missing. I can't think of a better word.
I guess the name of the artist fits it then, like Stefan Schei. But yeah, to be honest, I couldn't even really properly remember what song that was when he made that comment. But yeah, it was there. It wasn't one of my favorites, I would say.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I would have given it like, wasn't my top 10 at night, but I don't know how. I didn't rank them all. I just know that my personal favorite, Luke, did end up on top. I like Prince actually as well. I do think that Luke is a better choice in terms of getting some more good results home at Eurovision, because Prince is probably a little bit on the safer side, but he sings so well. I love the staging, and he has the best hair this year. So that's like something like, wow. Everyone in the chat, I would also like to hear from you in just a second. But first, I'm going to ask Roy. Serbia in semi-1. First half. A lot of people are considering this the tough semi.
Yes.
We still have a few songs to go. We don't know everything, but we always do that based on your current gut. Is Serbia a qualifier? Yes or no? And everyone in the chat, please do the same thing. Yes or no?
I wouldn't say a sure qualifier, but I do think it has a more or a bigger percentage of qualifying than I would say to non-qualify. So for me, qualifier.
I will read some of his. I'm just going to no. Yes, 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 no, no, yes, 100%, yes, 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 yes. So I'd say a few dissenting voices, but for the most part, it seems like an 80-20 kind of setup, saying yes. So people feel very confident about it. I think Luke needs to get his, when I say act together, that sounds so rude. I mean, like, need to polish what he has done in the Serbian national final. And if the voices and the visuals come together, I am leaning towards a likely qualifier. I think that Serbia has a really good shot at qualifying. If it were up to me, this would fly through. Like, if it's Matt's song contest, yeah, absolutely. See you there. That is very important. And one important thing that somebody pointed out is Kenneth, Serbia typically qualifies with the televote. So I say yes, that is true. Because Serbia has a little bit of a diaspora vote, if you will. However, they have Croatia, obviously, they get a lot of points from there. But who else is there? Often you get like votes from like Austria and Switzerland. Switzerland is in there. Some, that kind of stuff. But I think the friendlier votes are not as represented in the semi in particular. So I don't know if they're going to have that to count on. But I hear what you're saying. I do think even though the juries and the televoters both gave him second place, it seems like they agree, I still think it is more of especially on an international level, and more of a televote pleaser than a jury pleaser. Do you agree?
Yeah, definitely. I think when it gets to the grand final, I'm not sure if there will be that many jurors who will rank it very highly. So I do think it will qualify, but what would he do there? I'm not sure if it could break into the top 10, especially since so far this year, we've got quite a lot of contenders for the top 10, in my opinion. So, I don't know. I don't see this necessarily doing too incredibly well with the juries. But hey, prove me wrong. I would love
Neither
to.
did Constructor. She didn't do horrible. It certainly dragged her down a little bit, right? So
exactly.
Yeah, it comes down to, will Luke be as successful with the televoters? Thankfully, for them now, there are no juries in the semis. Therefore, that kind of could work in their favor. Smoothie is asking, did you have Hurricane flopping on the cards? Roy, did you think that Hurricane, because that got hardly any points in, I think I got 1 point from the televote, and that's it.
But was it the same Hurricane, though?
No, it wasn't the same Hurricane. It's three new girls, but the sound is still the same. They're very popular in Serbia, and, they got a bit of a hype in the bubble as well.
I mean, I might not be the best to ask because both years they were my bottom. But
oh, really?
Yeah. I never really saw much in Hurricane, to be honest. But I don't know, flopping, maybe I didn't see that coming. But also, was the song that amazing? Like just ZIMI, ZAMI, ZUMI, ZAMI?
ZIMI, ZAMI,
I don't know.
ZUM.
I get why I didn't do too well.
The thing is with Hurricane, I actually like their music once. Do you know what I mean? It's a kind of song, it doesn't have a longevity. The second song that actually went to Eurovision was probably my favorite, but Hasta la Vista and this one, I enjoyed them. I'm like, oh, this is a nice song. And then I listened the second time, I'm like, okay, this is getting old quickly. And I think that is the problem I have with their music. And I would have loved to have, I think they call it turbo pop there. That genre wouldn't be interesting, but I think lyrically, I would hope more than just singing about your own band name. So that is always a little bit odd. What do you think, Roy, about Rumba? If Zaina had won last night, would she have been in the top 10 in Eurovision? The last song of the night. Boom, 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 ba-dim, bim, boom, ba-dum, dum, dum, ding, ding. You remember that song, right?
Yeah. Oh, definitely, I do. I don't know. I don't think so. I didn't think she was that strong vocally, if that makes sense. I don't know. It didn't necessarily pop out to me as one of the favorites. So when I heard that it was one of the, not necessarily the big frontrunners, but it was definitely one of the ones people were talking about, I was quite a bit surprised, to be honest. So I don't know if that would have done top 10 at Eurovision. I would incline to say no, probably.
Yeah. I live in the past. So I always have a soft spot for like 90s and 2000s retro music, and Rumba was absolutely retro like that, right? And I, as a jury, I would have downgraded it quite a bit because of the very silly lyrics. Rumba dum, yet I wasn't home afterwards singing. Rumba dum, dum, dum. It's that kind of thing, and I'm like, stop it. And so I absolutely see the appeal, and it was absolutely a fun song. I do think it wouldn't have been the right choice for Eurovision. Again, it is a little bit in the past. And when I say in the past, I always say there's a difference between retro and outdated to me, right? You can go retro and still kind of feel relevant. Yeah. But if you go dated, then, that can be a little tricky. So when I feel that one, unfortunately, falls under that. And if you watch my initial video, you know how much I love that song because, I just had so much fun with it. But Luke was probably always my favorite. So I hear what you're saying. I don't think, though, it would have done a top 10 at Eurovision, right? No. That's fair to say.
No, yeah, that's definitely fair to say. Like I began with the statement that like a lot of these songs would have done well at Eurovision. Like I could see a lot of these songs qualify, and Rumba would be one of those as well. But top 10 would be a bit too far for that song, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. So yeah, that is what we're going to have now with Serbia. We're going to have Luke Black representing the country and hopefully make it to the finals again. As pointed out, a lot of people think semi-1 will be the tough one, but Serbia has a pretty darn good track record when it comes to qualification. The last time they did not make it, when was the last time they didn't qualify? I know in 2017. Was it the last time? I think so, right?
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, and that was also a super close one. So Serbia, I think you're gonna be okay.